मतिहीनजनाश्रयपादमिदं सकलागमभाषितभिन्नपदम् परिपूरितविश्वमनेकभवं तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् परिपूर्णमनोरथधामनिधिं परमार्थविचारविवेकनिधिं सुरयोषितसेवितपादतलं तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् सुरमौलिमणिद्युतिशुभ्रकरं विषयादिमहाभयवर्णहरं निजकान्तिविलेपितचन्द्रशिवं तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् गुणनैककुलस्थितिभीतिपदं गुणगौरवगर्वितसत्यपदं कमलोदरकोमलपादतलं तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् तव नौमि सरस्वतीपादयुगम् त्रिसन्ध्यं यो जपेन्नित्यं जले वापि स्थले स्थितः पाठमात्राद् भवेत् प्राज्ञो ब्रह्मनिष्ठः पुनः पुनः अथ बोधिचित्तानुशंसा नाम प्रथमः परिच्छेदः। ॐ नमो बुद्धाय। सुगतान् ससुतान् सधर्मकायान् प्रणिपत्यादरतोऽखिलांश्च वन्द्यान् सुगतात्मजसंवरावतारम् कथयिष्यामि यथागमं समासा न हि किञ्चिदपूर्वमत्र वाच्यं न च संग्रन्थनकौशलं ममास्ति अतएव न मे परार्थचिन्ता स्वमनो वासयितुं कृतं मयेदम् मम तावदनेन याति वृद्धिं कुशलं भावयितुं प्रसादवेगः अथ मत् समधातुरेव पश्येत् अपरोऽप्येन मतोऽपि सार्थकोऽयम् क्षणसम्पदीयं सुदुर्लभा प्रतिलब्धा पुरुषार्थसाधनी यदि नात्र विचिन्त्यते हितं पुनरप्येष समागमः कुतः रात्रौ यथा मेघघनान्धकारे विद्युत् क्षणं दर्शयति प्रकाशम् बुद्धानुभावेन तथा कदाचित् लोकस्य पुण्येषु मतिः क्षणं स्यात्।
Hello, everyone, and on behalf of all of us at Khyentse Vision Project, thank you so much for joining us this morning or this afternoon, or if you happen to be in the US like myself, very late at night. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Zach Beer. I am the lead of the translation teams at Khyentse Vision Project. And we are gathered here on the very auspicious occasion of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's anniversary in order to celebrate our publication of our first 21 translations. In a few minutes, we will begin a reading of a selection of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's writings, which we've been working very hard, doing our best to make available for all of you in English for the first time. And we hope that you will join us along reading from home. Before we begin though, please join me in welcoming our good friend from Siddhartha's Intent, Jakob Leschly, whom we've asked to speak for a few minutes about Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, his collections, and the power of reading his words out loud. Thank you so much for joining us, Jakob.
Thank you, Zach. I've been asked to say a little bit about the principle of resounding and also the importance of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's works. I think many of us are familiar with the principle and the Buddhist practice of resounding. Tsongtse Khyentse Rinpoche, he said, relatively speaking, the Buddha benefits sentient beings through his body, speech, mind, quality, and activity. Among these 5 ways to benefit sentient beings, obviously his speech, the teachings, is the most tangible, most feasible, and most credible. For that reason, to hear, to utter, to make the sound of the Dharma, to possess, to write, to read, to share, to even have within your possession is considered to be of infinite value. We can also see when we look at the various sutras, they always mention the incredible value of chanting or reading, memorizing, writing down the sutras. So I think it also applies here in the context of the Khyentse Vision Project that that's great value in simply just reading through the texts. And I hope Khyentse Vision Project will continue to have these programs, basically reading the translation that gradually will be made available. Now, for the importance of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's work, I think everybody is familiar somewhat with Khyentse Wangpo's life, his teaching, and also last year we went a little bit over that. So I'm going to say just a few general things about the context. We would say the Buddha's teaching is like a medicine that can cure the most fundamental cause of suffering universally, which is the individual delusion that fails to recognize reality and as a consequence creates the life worlds of suffering. And that is what we call samsara. The Buddha, with his enlightenment, found the cure for that. But it is significant in that the remedy does not lie in a material remedy or appropriating some belief or entering into some particular rarefied spiritual state. Rather, it is the recovery of a natural disposition of brilliant sanity, awakening to a freedom that we have always possessed but lost sight of. The Buddha did not just, like philosophers would do, give a theoretical idea or picture of what freedom and enlightenment is, but taught an actual course or path to remedy this condition of confusion. And since him, countless masters, men and women, have followed his lead and themselves arrived at freedom and awakening. They have been beacons that have manifested everything that is good about our existence, our being, our reality. Because everyone possesses the same selfless genes, those around such masters have been able to recognize their qualities, yet also recognizing how this natural intelligence is veiled within themselves, they have looked to these great beings for empowerment and guidance. These individuals and their societies came to flourish under the auspices of such awakened sublime beings and their teachings. So one such great beacon who upheld the light of the Buddha's teaching was the great master we're celebrating today, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, also known as Doji Sijitzel Pema Ösel Donga Klingpa, who lived from 1820 to 1892. Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo served the teaching and sentient beings, and his legacy is with us today. Particularly, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo left a wealth of writings on many topics, but primarily in the service of the Buddha's teaching, and hence we have numerous writings such as commentaries, treasure teachings, spiritual songs and pith instructions, and all sorts of advice. Moreover, he worked tirelessly collecting teachings from the many lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, and hence was seen as a father of the Rimé movement, the non-sectarian movement that appreciates and stresses the value of all branches of the Buddhist path as complementary to the attainment of enlightenment. He gathered countless students, not only from Tibet, but also from China. And the greatness of Tibetan Buddhism in the 19th century is reflected in the great activities by masters such as Jamyang Khyentse, Chögyal Lingpa, Jamgon Mipam, the Karmapas Tekchok and Kachap Dorje, Jamyang Wangpo, Nyala Pima Dundul, etc. But with pretty much all of them looking to one person as the supreme authority on the Dharma, namely Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. Since then, his incarnations have upheld his work, including Tsongsa Khyentse Chökyi Lodre, Dilbu Khyentse Rinpoche, Papong or Baro Khyentse. And currently, we have three notable incarnations of Khyentse Chökyi Lodre, namely Tsongsa Jamyang Khyentse, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, and Yeshe Khyentse Rinpoche. These have all been active in serving the Dharma and the cause of sentient beings. So it's 130 years since Khyentse Wangpo passed, and there is a tradition of celebrating this event. But today's celebration is different for us in the modern world who mostly cannot access the original writings. We're now looking at the successful operation of a vast project of translating his work into English, the Khyentse Vision Project. The website of Khyentse Vision Project was launched last year on this day, and since then an incredibly brilliant and capable team has gathered and created the necessary structure for this work. Now, the importance of Khyentse Wangpo's legacy lies not in that we have a noble and ancient culture that should be preserved as a cultural heritage. Rather, we should recognize that these teachings hold a proven cure for the condition of suffering. As with medicine, we rejoice in that there is a cure, and we are indebted to the great physicians from the time of the Buddha that have nursed countless beings back to health. The works of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo is such a system of medicine that can be applied to our deluded condition, as well as countless subsidiary purposes. We have a remarkable modern civilization with an advanced material technology, yet the area of what truly constitutes the core of our existence, the core of our reality, namely mind or consciousness, is poorly understood. It is because of not knowing properly the nature of this consciousness, the first person knower, that what is in fact the most real and verifiable phenomenon there is. Knowledge of both our own lived experience and our understanding of reality remains sadly the so-called hard problem. Modern science does not understand mind. This is where Buddhism, which perhaps is not very impressive materially, offers the enlightened knowledge of the Buddha into mind and its true nature, not as a dogma or scripture, but as verifiable, proven science with a 2,500-year track record. It is for this reason we cannot overestimate the value of the Khyentse Vision Project for the larger community of the planet and the people of the world. We must make sure the value of this project is seen in this light. So today I will join Khyentse Vision Project translation and editorial team members, Zach Beer, Rene Ford, Charles Hastings, and Kelly Tracy, to lead reading of each text. We will share the translations in English on the screen, but you can also download your own copy from the Khyentse Vision website translations page. So I will start with reading Song of the Joyful Cuckoo, verses on the tenets. Now this was taught by Do Tuku just a few days ago, so we only recommend you to consult that particular teaching, which I believe is available. So this text offers us insight into ourselves and our reality and provides what we call the view, which serves as the foundation for the path. It enables certainty about what we are doing on the path. This text summarizes a vast array of teachings, what we refer to as the tenet systems of analysis. And to grasp this generally requires a great deal of analysis and contemplation. Yet Khyentse Wangpo summarizes and clarifies the essence of countless teachings in just these few lines. Every line points to a gradually further opening of the nature of wisdom, the realization of the true nature of mind and reality. So the title is Drubeta Jepe Tsiksu Cheba Shense Gawe Romo, Song of the Joyful Cuckoo, verses on the tenets by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. So, Suryanto, the wisdom roar, the voice of non-dual speech, is free of veiling words and in all aspects complete. As such, it has the ability to resonate in tune with disciples' minds. May you now and forever be blessed by these means. Belief in a self, both acquired and innate, is but a baseless delusion, for it is neither one nor many. May the light of this awareness banish the darkness at the root of all flaws. In the beginning, may the door of intelligence be opened with ease to access the modes of the two realities, designating the smallest spatial extension as objects as particles, and the shortest moments of the subject as cognitions. Skilled in distinguishing all phenomena in terms of their relative and ultimate nature, on the basis of the generally characterized phenomena of appearing objects and the specifically characterized phenomena of direct perception, may the lotus of reason smile in full bloom. May you approach the path of the supreme vehicle by establishing outer phenomena as images painted by the mind, just like the appearance of objects in a dream, and settling this mind itself in non-dual pristine awareness. How wonderful. On the level of appearance, things arise in dependence. Their true nature is beyond all elaboration. By realizing both to be in union without contradiction, may the inconceivable dimension be fully revealed. Then, through the luminosity of the indivisibility of samsara and nirvana, brought forth by blissful means, joined inseparably with the non-dual illusory body of the deity, may the deathless and sublime eternal state be actualized. Sarva Siddhanto Bhujyanto.
I will now read a supplication to the previous incarnations of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, entitled An Amazing Line of Incarnations by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. Manjushri Mitra and the Dharma King Trisong, those treasures of knowledge, united the wisdom of all the victorious ones, I pray to you who appeared as the many manifestations of their body, voice, mind, qualities, and activity. Vimala, who has obtained the deathless rainbow body, Jetsun Drakpa, Rijun Dorje Drak, Vanaratna, and Sindhu Sampo, I pray to this amazing line of incarnations. As the omniscient Dharma King Longchenpa, Khyentse Wangchuk, the one called Namkha, and so on, through the play of a magical net suitable to the needs of beings, spreading the teachings without partiality, I pray to you. Now born into the noble family of the learned and accomplished, your wisdom is limitless, and you have perfected renunciation and bodhichitta. Your morality is pure, and your listening, reflection, and cultivation are complete. I pray to you, praise the Supreme in every way. The Lama, the highest deity, accepted you, and the threefold wheel of your enlightened activity is astonishing. Khyentse Wangpo, you are Manjughosha in person. I pray to you from my heart as I recall your life. Your three secrets rest in the indestructible Vajra teachings. You unceasingly spin the vast and profound wheel of Dharma, your noble work for beings' benefit and happiness reaching the ends of space. Please increase the good fortune of the doctrine and beings. When you, protector, at the foot of the Bodhi tree, display the attainment of complete awakening, even though we have been born since the beginning in samsara, may everything be auspicious for the two benefits to be naturally accomplished. With this weak memory of mine, I forget even most of the activities I performed in this life, and so there is not much hope for me to recall my past lives hidden from sight. Nevertheless, by relying on the scriptures of profound treasures and by following the statements of holy beings in accordance with the earnest request that was made by the spiritual friend Kunkha Gyatso, I, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, who is free from activity, compose this out of pure intentions. May it bring benefit, mangalam, virtue.
And now we turn to the lineage prayer to the teachers of Sumpa Lotsawa's Ear Whispered Mind Training, which is a supplication prayer to the lineage masters of Sumpa Lotsawa, including Vajravahari and Tara. And this is by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. Homage to the teacher and the three jewels. Homage to Vajravahari, illusionary embodiment of unsullied great bliss. Homage to the noble Lady Tara, epitome of the enlightened activities of the victors. Homage to Sumpa Lotsawa, who achieved both learning and accomplishment. Homage to Sakya Panchen, Lord of the Doctrine and savant of the five sciences. Homage to Chogyal Pakpa, holder of boundless precious qualities. I bow to Shungten Chukchuk Pel, pure practitioner of the sublime doctrine. I bow to Chöje Drakpukpa, who after striving and practice found accomplishment. Homage to Sunam Gyaltsen, unequaled lord of the doctrine. The supplement. I bow to Tokme Zangpo Pel, son of the victor Avalokiteshvara in person. Homage to Jangjuk Tsemo, Kashipa and Pelden Zangpo. I bow at the feet of Natin Sampen, Yuntin Pel and Kunga Kunjup. Homage to Jamyang Khyentse Lawa Drak and Kunga Ningpo. I bow at the feet of Trinley Wangmo, who bear the name Rinchen, and at the feet of Ningpo Taye. Homage to Vidyadhara Khyentse Wangpo and Sewang Norbu. I bow at the feet of Nawang Nam Gyal, Churgyal Pel, and Lobsang Tutuk. Homage to the Mahasafa Nima Chupel and Lotso Tenkyong. I bow at the feet of the spiritual masters who have passed on the kind gift of this path. May I and all migrating beings, as infinite as the sky, by dint of the supplication prayer, be taken under the wing of the authentic master throughout all our future lives. May we in this very life attain a mind at ease, content with whatever happens, and the ability to utilize our mind, resulting in mind and dharma being fused, the great immortal trust. In short, may all times and occasions, whether happiness or suffering, or gain or loss befall us, turn into the path of enlightenment by means of the practice of profound mind training. This homage to the lineage masters of Sumpa Lotsawa's ear-whispered mind training was put into writing Anulchul Tsutsong by a venerable monk and teacher of the doctrine Tokme, who had been requested to do so by Geshe Sakya Yeshe from Minyak. The supplement and 3 verses of Aspirations were composed by Khyentse Wangpo. May it be virtuous.
Nectar of the Heart, a guide to Sumpa Lotsawa's ear-whispered mind training. So this was inspired by Sumpa Lotsawa's vision of Tara and Vajrayogini at Bodh Gaya, and it proposes methods for dealing with life's most difficult challenges based on 4 Vajra statements. Today's reading includes the story of the transmission's origins with the first 2 of those Vajra statements. Om Swasti Siddham. The quintessence obtained from churning the ocean of treatises of the supreme vehicle are the instructions of the oral lineage, the nectar of the heart of the exalted ones of the golden eon. To the masters, apt in granting those, I bow and shall disclose a little of the profound path. This will consist of 2 parts. The history of the instruction to inspire faith and demonstrate the authenticity of its origin, and the actual instruction which emerged from that history. So, the history of the instruction to inspire faith and demonstrate the authenticity of its origin. Sumpa Lotsawa Dhamma Yönten, also referred to as Pachok Dangpo Dorje, who achieved scholarship and accomplishment, remained for a long time in the noble land of India. When the desire arose in him to return to Tibet, he made elaborate offerings of what was left from the gold he had brought from his expenses in Bodh Gaya, India. Feeling a bond to India's sacred places and masters, he had doubts as to whether he should leave or remain, and so his heart was heavy and he felt uneasy. As he was circumambulating the Mahabodhi temple, there was a reddish girl following a bluish girl who were circumambulating the temple. At times, they circled above in the air, and at other times, they were walking on the ground some distance from him. Thinking they would vanish if he pursued them, Sumpa Lotsawa stayed where he was. At that point, the reddish woman said, "Lately, I have been feeling restless. I also feel like I want to go somewhere. Might it be a premonition of my death? In fact, I'm terrified of dying." To this, the bluish woman responded, looking straight towards Sumpa Lotsawa, "O lady, if you are content with whatever happens, whatever you do will bring happiness. You suffer because you are lacking this quality of contentment." After the bluish woman had responded to the reddish woman's queries with 4 Vajra statements, beginning with the one just mentioned, A perfect understanding of their meaning dawned upon the Lotsawa. He knew how to practice the import of all the teachings he had learned in the past, and extraordinary realization arose in him. The point of all the teachings he had studied in the past became clear, and for this reason, he held those instructions in greatest esteem. He said that the two women, red and blue, were Vajravarahi and the noble lady Tara. After Sumpa Lotsawa had translated these Vajra statements, he taught them to Manjughosha Sakya Pandita Kunga Gyatsen Perzangpo, who then passed them on to Pakpa Rinpoche, the protector of beings, and to the Siddha Dachawa Rinpoche Zangpo. After that, they were successively passed on. It is known that in later times, when Gyaltse Rinpoche Tokmepa requested the glorious Lama Dampa Sonam Gyaltse to give him the one instruction, which was the essence of his own personal practice, he bestowed upon him these four Vajra statements. Urged by Geshe Pakpa La, Lama Dampa Sonam Gyaltse is also said to have composed a guidebook at that time. When Lachen Solo of the family of Sakya went to China, Gyaltse Rinpoche accompanied him until Lhasa. It was at that time that this very instruction came to be taught by masters from all over, first and foremost by Gyaltsepa in public teachings in the courtyards of Lhasa, as it is recorded in Chögyal Gyaltsepa's biography. These examples illustrate that many great masters have made this instruction the center of their personal practice. Of particular note is Sachen Chögyal Gyalpo, in whom the rivers of the two transmission lineages passed down by Jomgon Sapan converged into a single stream. Sachen himself had received the instruction from Jetsun Dorjingpa. In the occasion when Sachen was giving experiential instructions based on Chögyal Lama Dampa's guidebook at the glorious Shalu Serkang Monastery, Nesawa Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, who was Manjughosha in person, wrote Dispelling Darkness in the Heart, Notes on the Oral Tradition. The transmission of these experiential instructions then continued uninterruptedly through later times, and it was Venerable Kunga Chodchok who, having received the instructions in the transmission lineage of Gyaltse Rinpoche, included them in his work, 100 Instructions. Their oral transmission has continued to this day. So now the actual instruction which emerged from that history. The practice of this instruction, known as Sumpa Lotsawa's ear-whispered mind training, also referred to as the Dakinis' four Vajra statements, begins as follows. The first Vajra statement: if you're content with whatever happens, whatever you do brings happiness. The practice of the import of the first Vajra statement is twofold. The practice methods associated with the preliminaries and the main practice. So, for the preliminaries, in a secluded place, seated on a comfortable cushion, in the posture of meditative absorption, visualize the three jewels filling the space in front of you, and imagine that you and all other sentient beings go for refuge with their three doors in unison. Practice the fourfold refuge 100 times, 1,000 times, or as many times as you can, and with your attention fixed on all beings, recite 3 times, I shall attain perfect Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, and to that end, I shall engage in the practice of the profound ear-whispered instructions of the Dakinis. Reciting this 3 times will help you to engender aspiring and engaging bodhicitta. When you are teaching this instruction to someone else, do it in this way, just described. For your own personal practice, just recite 3 times Atisha's verse of taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and community, which distills the key points of the sutra teaching the 4 factors, so that refuge and bodhicitta arise simultaneously. The first line of the verse shows the object in which one takes refuge. Until my enlightenment signifies the time period, I as the person, go for refuge shows the action, engaging in giving and so on refers to engaging bodhicitta, and may I achieve Buddhahood refers to aspiring bodhicitta. Thus it is said. The actual preliminary practice has two parts: meditating on the difficulty of obtaining the freedoms and advantages of human existence, and on death and impermanence, and meditating on the karmic law of cause and effect, on the defect and the defects of samsara. So, for meditation on the difficulty of obtaining the freedoms and advantages of human existence, and on death and impermanence, our body may be free of illness, our mind free of sorrow, and our intentions fulfilled. Other people may praise and respect us. Although we experience all sorts of feelings of happiness in body and mind such as these, we are not content with them. Instead, we feel the urge to despise others and harbor a variety of feelings such as envy and resentment concerning other people's happiness, as well as conceit about our own. This accumulates an abundance of karma derived from attachment and aversion. And that very happiness thus becomes the cause for rebirth in samsara and the lower realms. Now, to practice contentment for whatever feelings of happiness you may experience, you should briefly call to mind the feelings of happiness in body and mind mentioned before, whenever they occur. When you experience pleasant sensations, repeatedly engage in the following reflection. Pleasant sensations last only for a moment, like a dream just before waking up. These sensations, however, are not worth accumulating karma derived from attachment and aversion, so I shall be content with whatever feeling of happiness I encounter. However pleasant and beautiful a room in a guest house may be, since I would be staying there just a few nights before departing again, it would not be worth developing attachment for it. Regardless of the quality of the guest house facilities or how many gatherings of people there might be, since I would be leaving after only a short time, it would not be worth becoming attached to it. Just like that, whatever I may possess in this life, dwelling place, body, wealth, retinue, attendants, and so on, are all just temporary circumstances that have come about due to my past karma and dependent origination. Thus, there is no certainty as to when death will strike, and very soon I will be separated from them. And at any moment, I will have to set out alone to an uncertain destination. Thus, I shall not waste my time accumulating karma derived from attachment and aversion because of these things. Similarly, when you encounter feelings of suffering from bodily illnesses or violent, unbearable mental sorrow, and you accumulate negative karma derived from attachment and aversion on their basis, that suffering will become an obstacle to liberation. So cultivate the following thought. I shall be content with whatever feeling of suffering I encounter. There is absolutely no need to accumulate karma on that basis. This feeling of suffering is like a dream before waking up, or like a decrepit guest house, bereft of facilities, to stay in which would be like an insult. Whatever a guest house is like, since I will move on at any moment and I cannot stay there forever, it is not worth developing attachment or aversion for it. In the same way, if I die tonight or tomorrow, whatever negativity befalls me in this situation of uncertainty, I shall not waste my time accumulating karma based on that suffering. Now, by every means, in order to not let this short life go to waste, I shall practice the Dharma. Thus it is said. Meditation on the karmic law of cause and effect and on the defects of samsara. To engage in the practice of this line, if you are content with whatever happens, whatever you do brings happiness, in conjunction with the meditation on the karmic law of cause and effect and the defects of samsara, do as follows. If you experience happiness, as explained before, reflect thus. This kind of happiness is the result of my virtuous actions in past lives. What I want is only happiness, but happiness does not come from non-virtue. It only comes from virtue. Thus, from now on, until I die, until the sun rises tomorrow, and until the end of this meditation session, I shall accumulate by every means whatever virtue there is to be accomplished, small, intermediate, and great. Whatever feelings of suffering occur to you, the fact that you experience them is the result of non-virtuous actions. Nobody wants such misery. This being the case, the only way is to abandon its cause, non-virtue. Therefore, make the fervent aspiration that from now on until you die, until the sun rises tomorrow, and until the end of this session, even at the cost of your life, you will refrain from non-virtue, even in its most subtle forms, let alone severe ones. Accordingly, make this aspiration, thinking, when any of those sufferings befall my body or mind, if I cannot tolerate even such minor sufferings, how could I bear the intense, long-lasting, terrible sufferings of the hells and the hungry ghost and animal realms? Since I cannot tolerate the multiple sufferings of gods, demigods, and human beings mentioned before, I need to refrain from negative actions, the cause of those sufferings. Thus it is said. For the main practice, the practice associated with the main part of the path has two parts: the training associated with conventional bodhicitta and with ultimate bodhicitta. For the training in conventional bodhicitta, whenever you experience happiness, physically or mentally, notice those feelings. When you are experiencing pleasant sensations, think, everybody enjoys this kind of happiness. All those sentient beings striving for happiness are not unimportant to me. They have all been my dear parents time and again in previous lifetimes. Therefore, I shall give my happiness and its causes entirely to all of them. Make that thought your fervent aspiration. Mentally, take your happiness, that is to say, your body and possessions and so on, and its causes, your roots of virtue, in their entirety, and imagine giving them to all sentient beings in general, in the form of a shower of jewels that effortlessly fulfills every wish they might have. Specifically, imagine that these jewels transform into a great rain of whatever sentient beings desire, such as clothing for those who lack clothing, food for those without food, and shelter for those who lack shelter, thus fulfilling all their wishes. In the same way, visualize that the torment of heat beings in the hot hells may be dispelled by cooling rain and wind, thus granting them a pleasant coolness of body and mind, and the darkness of the cold hells be dispelled by a warm entity, such as the light of the sun. Think that you transform into a tool for clearing away the suffering in each of the 6 realms by giving them warmth and comfort and so on. Make all this your aspiration. In order to be able to visualize this clearly, make the following aspiration prayer. May all my happiness and virtues ripen upon all sentient beings. If you address your prayer to an extraordinary entity, whatever you pray for will come true. So make this strong, heartfelt supplication to your teacher and the 3 jewels who fill the space in front of you. O Master and precious 3 jewels, grant your blessings so that my happiness and virtues ripen upon all sentient beings. In short, practice by alternating your aspirations, prayers, and applications. Whatever happiness you experience, do not allow such feelings as arrogance and conceit to turn into a cause for samsara. You should bring that happiness onto the path by applying key points such as this. Thus it is said. Whatever feelings of suffering, such as those mentioned before you, think, to suffer like this is always unwelcome. Yet sentient beings, because they do not know the proper means, create the very suffering they are trying to avoid. Make the following fervent aspiration. If only the suffering and the causes of suffering that is the karma and afflictions of all sentient beings, would be absorbed in their entirety into my own suffering. Imagine the suffering of all beings and its causes gathering into a dark mass, and then swiftly getting absorbed into whatever suffering may be happening to you. Then visualize them bathed in pure white light in a state of utter bliss and rest in awareness beyond expression. As before, practice alternately your aspirations, prayers, and supplications. The aspiration prayer is as follows: may all beings suffering and negative actions converge upon me in their entirety. Supplicate like this: O Master and precious Three Jewels, bless me so that all beings suffering and negative actions converge upon me in their entirety. It is important not to harbor any anger or dispiritedness about one's suffering. Instead, take it onto the path. Thus it is said. In short, if someone comes along and gives you even a mere needle and thread, this is the positive outcome of your having practiced generosity to others in the past. It was neither accidental nor due to something else, such as your good appearance. Offer all your happiness and virtues, such as the fact that you've been given that needle and thread, entirely to your teacher and the Three Jewels. Give them in their entirety to all sentient beings without differentiating. Having given them away, imagine as before that they turn into whatever beings desire, thus making them content. This is taught to be the key point by which one can accumulate immeasurable virtue on the basis of even the most minute things, such as a needle and thread. Thus it is said. The training in ultimate bodhicitta. Whatever feelings of happiness you may experience, their nature can by no means be established as something separate from your mind. If you search for the time, the place, and the manner in which this mind of yours first came to be, you will not find anything. In the beginning, mind has no cause, no origination. So where, starting from the internal and external parts of your body, from the essential inner organs, up until the external world and its inhabitants, large and small, does the mind dwell? Even if you search and examine thoroughly how the mind might dwell in terms of shape, color, and defining characteristics, you will not be able to say it is this. Therefore, in the middle, there is nothing of the mind that remains. Given that arising and remaining cannot be established, cessation, which can only be posited in relation to the former two, is not established either. Nobody, even if they search, will find anything to say, at the end it dissolved into something like this, or here it has come to an end. Therefore, mind has no result, no final cessation. In short, settle your mind fully into its ineffable fundamental nature, devoid of the three stages of arising, remaining, and ceasing. In the same way, whichever feeling of suffering arises, look at its nature and practice as explained above. In summary, whatever appearance of dualistic phenomena, such as happiness and suffering or joy and sorrow arises, bring them onto the path without conceited attachment or anger and so on, by applying a key point like this, so that whatever happens, there will be happiness. Whatever happens will then turn into Dharma, and happiness will ensue, temporarily and ultimately. Thus it is said. The second Vajra statement. If your mind rests where it's placed, even traveling elsewhere will be okay. The practice associated with this statement contains 2 points, the common yoga and the uncommon yoga. The common yoga. In order to engage in the practice of the common yoga, you should, in whichever virtuous action you undertake, make fervent, heartfelt aspirations. Carry these aspirations in your heart always, like a mother whose only son has died. Whatever distraction arises, if you can practice without falling under its influence, whether you travel, go for a walk, sleep, or sit, you will still be able to apply your mind. Thus your virtue will not degenerate, but rather increase. Therefore, it will be all right if you stay in one place, and even traveling elsewhere will be okay. The Uncommon Yoga. As for the practice of the Uncommon Yoga, Master Shantideva says, penetrative insight joined with calm abiding utterly eradicates afflicted states. Knowing this, first search for calm abiding, found by people who are happy to be free from worldly ties. As stated here, having made your mind pliant by means of calm abiding, the afflictions will be quelled. And once you have realized the nature of your mind by means of penetrative insight, they will be uprooted completely. Knowing this, you first need to search for calm abiding, which is the foundation of penetrative insight. Such calm abiding arises from a sense of utter disengagement in body and mind. Fully relinquish all the futile vicissitudes of your present life. Then, as a beginner, go to a secluded place and sit cross-legged on a comfortable cushion. Assume a straight sitting posture. Leave your energy wind in its natural state and supplicate your teacher and meditation deity. Having severed all conceptual elaborations of the three times, rest evenly without any grasping in the mind's ineffable fundamental nature, in an open state, free of any thoughts. In this way, a meditative experience of stillness would gradually arise. Once you have gained a certain amount of familiarity with that experience, you will be able to remain in meditative equipoise at all times. If you strive in this way, you will, without getting carried away by external circumstances, recognize the nature of your mind, be able to maintain its natural state and attain freedom. Then, whatever object you focus on, if your mind rests where it is placed, whether you are physically in a city or on a long journey on the road, your mind will not be separated from that experience, and whatever you do will be okay.
The Cuckoo Song, a spontaneous Vajra song linking symbols with meanings. This Vajra song of renunciation was composed by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo as he looked out over the Tibetan landscape from high up in the mountains above. Namo Guru Jnanaya. When I look up and see the canopy of the sun circling in the center of the bright sky over the four lands, I remember now, during the daylight of freedoms and endowments, I must tread the pathway to unexcelled liberation. When I look away and see the well-plowed field, with each crop ripening in its own way, I remember I should work hard at deeds conducive to liberation, since good and bad actions bear fruit without fail. When I look nearby and see hunters stalking innocent wild animals in the verdant valley like a playground for them, I remember, while I postpone applying the means to sublime liberation, the relentless Lord of Death swiftly catches me in his rope. When I look down and see the rushing waterfall shimmering with an endless array of patterns, I remember, no matter where I am born in samsara, the cycle of dissatisfaction is overwhelming and unending. When I see a rainbow halo in the southwestern sky adorned by the molten white light of the moon, I remember the soul refuge, Sokya Doje, upon the peak of the glorious emanated mountain in Chamara. When I see the mist gathered like a resplendent silk scarf around the slope of an immaculate, majestic white snow mountain, I'm reminded how intellectual talk obscures the natural face of a middle way view of luminosity, free of all constructs. When I see how the stifling present day drought snatches away from clouds in midair the steadily pattering stream of rain. I'm reminded how, without effort and as a matter of course, delusion creeps in during non-conceptual Mahamudra meditation, free of mental engagement. When I see how the melody of the cuckoo perched on the berry-laden juniper branch sounds beautiful and yet superficial, I think how Bodhisattva practice, intensely focused on helping others, can belie hollow, self-serving pretense. When I see dense storm clouds temporarily obscure the radiant, stainless face of the moon, I think how conceptual sidetracks of ambitions obscure the spontaneously present bodies and wisdoms, the fruition of the great perfection. When I felt the messages of these various appearances hit home, I looked at my mind stream, bereft of renunciation and compassion, and felt overwhelming sadness. So from the treasury of Vajra songs, I let out this spontaneous, uncontrived song. Working for the liberation of myself and all beings, may we attain the supreme state within one lifetime.
In praise of the noble lady Vajra Saraswati with appended verses by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. In the Indian language, Arya Vajra Saraswati Stuti, and the Tibetan language, Pakma Dorje Yangchenma Latopa. In the English language, in praise of the noble lady Vajra Saraswati. Homage to the Blessed One, sovereign of speech. Goddess, when we recite this praise with true devotion, you destroy in a single instant the chains that bind us to cyclical existence. Mother of all victorious ones, I bow to you. In your supreme wisdom, swiftly, ever swiftly, you cut through ignorance by means of wisdom. Goddess among goddesses, I bow to you. You grant all supreme forms of intellect and bestow infinite types of intelligence. Intelligent perfected as Prajna Paramita, treasure of boundless intelligence, I bow to you. Appended verses. Noble lady, now that the brilliant moonlight of this felicitous supplication has dispelled the darkness of all confusion, may the ocean of intellect swell. Goddess of melody, may you appear in the wisdom mirror of the two accumulations, splendid in your display of deity, mantra, and samadhi, so that the two cities may be achieved. Glory of speech, now that the stream of nectar, the blessing of your three secrets, has purified the stains of the three obscurations, may we be restored to the twofold wisdom. In short, from now until awakening, noble lady, may I be taken into your care, and may all three realms be thereby delivered into basic space, perfection of wisdom. This praise to the noble lady, Red Saraswati, comes from an ancient manuscript of the secret practice of Red Saraswati. It is presented here by Khyentse Wangpo, joyful servant of Jamyang Lama, sweet voiced guru, with several verses of pended aspirations, entreating the fulfillment of desired aims in accordance with the scriptures, virtue.
Next, we have a Mahamudra text entitled The Drop of Spring, a spontaneous Vajra song of definitive meaning that supplicates the great charioteers of the luminous Mahamudra. Aho, conjoining the pristine primordial wisdom free of elaborations with the youthfulness of luminous great bliss, you attain union endowed with the supreme of all aspects and bear the major and minor marks of perfect accomplishment. Great Buddha Vajradhara, I long for you from the center of my heart. Bless me to realize the unborn true nature. Vajra Queen, devourer of the three existences, with your magical illusions, you bring the fortunate to a banquet of the two accomplishments and experientially reveal the naturally liberated truth of the fundamental nature. Chief of the primordial wisdom dakinis, I long for you from the center of my heart. Bless me to accomplish the unchanging supreme bliss. Displaying the drop of the primordially changeless nature of reality as a playful emanation of the three seats of phenomena, you bestowed the short path of the ultimate secret yoga to the fortunate. Tilopa Prajnabhadra, I long for you from the center of my heart. Bless me to realize the transcendent continuum. By the marvelous chariot of 82 challenging deeds, you approached the lotus feet of the presiding Lord, the glorious Guru, and attained the precious qualities of the stages and paths in a single moment. Reverend Lord Naropa, I long for you from the center of my heart. Bless me to obtain the nectar of maturation and liberation. The flowers of the secret tantras blossom in the ocean-like multitudes of teachings and practices by tapping them to extract the honey-like nectar of the essential pith instructions. You introduce the intelligent to the restfulness of the supreme adepts. Yogin Marpa, the translator, I long for you from the center of my heart. Bless me to realize the innate primordial wisdom. Driven by the wind of an intense and genuine determination to be free, you firmly secured yourself to the boat of the true nature, inner suchness, and crossed to the other shore of the ocean of existence and peace. Mila Shepe Dorje, I long for you from the center of my heart. Bless me to reach the ultimate goal in one life. Outwardly, you are a spiritual friend of the Mahayana, fully trained in Bodhichitta. Inwardly, you are a practitioner of the Vajrayana, treading the path of maturation and liberation. Secretly, you are the crown jewel of the doctrine holder of the essential profound meaning. Dharma King Da Ishanu, I long for you from the center of my heart. Bless me so that the two benefits are accomplished spontaneously. In short, the beacons of the oral lineage of the ultimate and swift path introduce all beings of the land of snow to the light of liberation, and guide all with whom they have connections to the great blissful city of the three Kayas. Gurus of the Dakwa Kagyu of natural liberation, I long for you from the center of my heart. Bless me to realize that all that is perceived is illusory. Aho, although I have attained the difficult to attain, the free and well-favored precious human body, I am disheartened at the way things appear to be, momentary and impermanent. Through the realization that wherever I am born in samsara is naturally suffering, bless me with the capacity to accept or reject cause and effect. Recognizing abodes, friends, and possessions to be a play of illusion, I deeply recall the revulsion towards insignificant things, come what may. In a cave of extreme isolation under an overhanging cliff in a pleasing environment, bless me to strive single-pointedly in practice. To accept the three jewels as the foremost refuge, to train in supreme bodhicitta, both in aspiration and in deed, and to utterly expel all the obscurations by utilizing the four powers. Bless me to achieve these goals and to endeavor on the path of the two accumulations. In particular, the embodiment of all the victors of the three times, the bodily display of omniscient primordial wisdom, the presiding Lord, the glorious Guru, possessing the threefold kindness. Bless me to perfect uncontrived devotion. By the Guru's power, the empowerment that transfers Vajra wisdom purifies the three doors equally of all habitual tendencies of transference, and one directly perceives the ultimate and unchanging true fundamental nature. Bless me to liberate samsara and nirvana into the central channel. The form arisen from the essence that is the same as emptiness, perceiving it as the union of appearance and emptiness, the body of the deity, firmly binds common delusory concepts. Bless me to cultivate the excellent path of the creation stage. By being saturated with the nectar of the three kinds of training, I have accomplished the union of all winds that enter, abide, and arise, and become familiar with the outer, inner, and secret yoga of inner heat. Bless me in my blazing, dripping, and dissolving in the central channel. Resting in the actual primordial wisdom of near attainment during equipoise, and perceiving all things as the 8 similes of illusion during subsequent cognition, familiarizes one with the illusory clarity emptiness, pure and devoid of clinging. Bless me to accomplish the level of union. Having entered the luminosity of supreme bliss through the complete or subsequent dissolution and conjoined it with the essence of the 4 empties in an experience of equality, everything is liberated into the space of the Vajra mind of perfect accomplishment. Bless me to dissolve into the Dharmakaya of death. Holding the wind and mind inseparably in the drop of the throat, in viewing daytime appearances as only the entering and emerging of dreams, conjoin one with the practice that recognizes derivative delusion for what it is. Bless me to master purification, multiplication, emanation, and transformation. Familiarizing myself with a view that sees all phenomena as the unreal appearances of the intermediate state, the direct cause of being able to see those appearances as deity, mantra, and dharmakaya, merges the intermediate state with the level of the Sambhogakaya. Bless me to achieve the supreme attainment. Although the ultimate is beyond elaborate characteristics such as coming and going, conventionally by relying upon a messenger of yogic breath practice, the wind, mind, and drop are ejected into the space of the duty. Bless me to attain the unerring Khechara. The meditative absorption of calm abiding abandons all coarse and subtle concepts. When magnificently perfected, it is like placid ocean. By embracing it with the insight of the inexpressible and self-arisen true nature, bless me to realize their inseparable union. One-pointedness is remaining in a state of clarity, emptiness in the yoga of visionary experiences. Freedom from elaborations is realizing the original fundamental nature upon the path of seeing. One taste is being free from abandoning, adopting, denying, and affirming. Bless me to secure these along with the 4th, the stronghold of non-meditation. Through familiarizing myself with the primordial, innate, unchanging great bliss, the indivisible Ayan Vam, the drop of spring, and by introducing the indicative wisdom of the uncovered true primordial wisdom, bless me to perceive the definitive meaning of Mahamudra. Accordingly, by relying upon the Vajra yogas of the swift path and maintaining my commitments and vows in a faultless form during the experiences of this life, at the time of death, and in the intermediate states, bless me to achieve the level of the 3 kayas. If the power of karma causes me to enter existence, bless me to be born into the sharp-witted Vajrayana family, and with songs intoxicated with the nectar of maturation and liberation, bless me to proceed to the cities of accomplishment. In this way, with resolute respect, a supplicating song of the definitive meeting was sung with a lotus-like and pleasing voice that is free of attachment. On the 25th day, during the waning phase, when the heroes and dakinis assembled to make an aspiration prayer to realize transcendent luminosity. This supplication to the great masters who attained accomplishment through the path of the luminous Mahamudra in conjunction with aspirational prayers of the profound path was freely composed by the renunciant beggar called Suklak Mawinima on the 25th day under the light of a butter lamp near the glorious Taklang Monastery, City Rastu.
Supplication to the lineage gurus for the profound sadhana of the praise to noble Manjushri that bestows lucid intelligence. This lineage prayer, composed to accompany Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's concise sadhana of the famous praise to noble Manjushri, pays homage to the erudite Buddhist masters who studied and taught the praise in India and Tibet across the centuries. If you want to know more about them, you can find in the notes to the translation details of who they were and their lives. To Manjushri, Vajrashastra, Trilaksha Stirapada, the great Ngok Lotsawa, Rinchen Drakpa, Changchuk Drakpa, Cherki Sengye, and the eminent Sundra Sengye. To Dharma Sengye, Jampel Dorje, Dharma Tsutrim, and the glorious Sonam Gyatsen, Rinchen Singye, Bhutan, and the spiritual father and son, Tashi Rinchen, and the master Ngorchen. To Drukpa Gyatsen, Lekpe Jungne, Kunga Sonam, Kuncho Lundrup, and Sangye Singye, who possessed the marks of a Buddha. Namka Palsang, Namka Sangye, Sonam Choden, and Rinchen Gyatso. To Chole Namgyal, Kunka Lundrup, Lekpe Jungne, and the eminent Kunga Lodro, Tempe Nima, and the youthful Manjusri, Ngawan Dorje Rinchen, Dorje Ziche, Lodro Taye, Trinle Jumpa Jungle, and others, I pray with unwavering devotion to all the glorious masters of the sublime lineage. Through this invocation, by my fingers of threefold faith upon a jeweled lute in praise of Manjusri, the gentle protector, grant your blessings here and now so that lucid intelligence regarding the ocean of the outer and inner fields of knowledge may increase, and I may ultimately attain omniscient wisdom beyond the extremes of samsara and nirvana. This was composed by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo.
Clouds of offerings to delight the gentle protector. How to practice the profound sadhana of the praise to noble Manjushri. This very important prayer to Manjushri has a long history, and Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo presents it within a very brief sadhana, which is widely practiced. Namo Guru Manju Goshaya. Those intelligent ones who wish to bring to perfection stainless wisdom, the very root of all qualities of the higher realms and of ultimate happiness, should practice the sadhana based on the praise to Manjushri, glorious wisdom's excellent qualities, composed by the accomplished master Vajrashastra. Start by receiving authorization from an authentic teacher who is the holder of the lineage, and then, giving rise to intense renunciation and great compassion, undertake the progressive stages of this practice. The sadhana is divided into three parts: preliminaries, main practice, and conclusion. First, take refuge and generate the mind of enlightenment. I and all beings, until we reach enlightenment, will follow the Lama and the three jewels as our refuge. In order to attain perfect Buddhahood for the sake of others, I will practice the sadhana of the praise to Manjushri. By this means, may sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never separate from the happiness that is free from all suffering. May they abide in a state of great equanimity. Recite 3 times. The main practice, visualization and recitation. Om Svabhava Shuddha Sarva Dhamma Svabhava Shuddho Ham. All phenomena are beyond the constructions of self, aggregates, and the conceptual mind. From the state of absorption, the unceasing dependent arising of appearances manifests as a magical display. At my 3 centers are the 3 syllables, Om, Ah, Hum. And in the middle of my heart, on a moon disk, is the syllable Di. From these, rays of light stream forth, inviting the wisdom deity, the youthful Manjushri. He appears in the sky in front as a 16-year-old youth, joyfully seated upon a lotus and moon disk. Adorned with the major and minor marks, resplendent and supremely majestic, his skin is the color of saffron. His gleaming black hair is gathered in 5 bunches, and his ears are beautified with bouquets of blue pala flowers. In his right hand, he wields the sword of wisdom, and in his left, he holds a volume of the Prajna Paramita. Adorned with precious gems and multicolored silk raiments, he is seated in the Vajra posture. His 3 centers are marked with the 3 syllables, and upon a moon disk in the center of his heart, an orange syllable D blazes with light. It emanates light rays, inviting the deities who empower Manjushri with the nectar of primordial wisdom. As it fills his body, all obscurations are purified, and he is crowned by Akshobhya. Through the power of praising Manjushri and praying with devotion, the words of the praise and mantra garlands stream forth continuously from the syllable in his heart. Like the brilliant rays of the morning sun, they dissolve into my heart, dispelling all the darkness of ignorance with the light of his knowledge, love, and power. This causes the lotus of my awareness and love to blossom, and I attain the level of Manjushri, the gentle protector. Visualizing in this way, recite the praise to Manjushri 3 times. You, whose intelligence is pure and brilliant like the sun, freed from the clouds of the 2 obscuring veils, hold at your heart a volume of the Prajnaparamita, for you see the nature of everything as it is. All those who are caught in the prison of existence, clouded by the darkness of ignorance and afflicted with suffering, you love each one as an only child. Your voice is mellifluous with the 60 qualities. With a clap of thunder like the roar of a dragon, you wake us from the slumber of our conflicting emotions and free us from the chains of karma. Dispelling the darkness of ignorance, your sword cuts cleanly through the root of all suffering. Pure from the beginning, with the 10 bhumis traversed and all qualities perfected, the foremost heir of the conquerors, adorned with the 112 signs of Buddhahood, to you, who drive away the darkness of my mind, Manjushri, I bow down with all my heart. Repeat the mantra 21 times. Om Arapatanadi. Furthermore, the praise can accordingly be recited in a 9-fold way. Alternatively, you can recite the praise 7 or 21 times, after which you should recite the mantra as much as you can. This should suffice for the purpose of daily practice. However, if the goal is to complete a concentrated, in-depth practice to accomplish Manjushri, an ancient commentary on the benefits of the practice explains that one should proceed with the sadhana as described until the praise has been recited 70,000 times and the mantra has been recited 500,000 to 700,000 times. After reciting the praise 3 times, conclude as follows. O loving Son of Speech, with the luminous rays of your perfect knowledge and compassion, please utterly dispel from my mind the dark clouds of ignorance and the obscuring emotional and cognitive veils. Help me to correctly understand the excellent words of the Buddhas, their commentaries, and their treatises, and having awakened in me lucid and undaunted intelligence, help me to attain omniscience. Pray one pointedly for such wishes to be fulfilled, and then either dissolve the deity in front into you, or consider that the deity is beyond conceptual reference. Then rest for as long as possible in the union of shamatha and vipassana that brings lucid intelligence regarding the selflessness of oneself and phenomena. When you arise from the state, recite. By the merit of having combined the 2 accumulations and through the power of attaining the clear perception of selflessness, may I directly recognize the supreme wisdom mind of Manjushri, free from elaboration. By dispelling both conceptual and innate ignorance and the afflictive emotions with Vajra-like concentration, may I eradicate cognitive obscurations of every kind and attain the wisdom of the Sugatas. Once you have dedicated your merit, made aspiration prayers and so on, engage in your ordinary activities. Between sessions, give meaning to your actions by not parting from the essence of compassion and its nature as emptiness. Practice with exertion in this way, and it is certain that before long, you will attain the wisdom body of Manjushri, beyond the extreme of existence and cessation. This sadhana was composed by the monk who has listened extensively, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, with the intention of benefiting both himself and others by condensing the essential meaning of all the ancient texts. It was written down by the Dharma master and Lama Ananda Manjughosha. May this be the cause for all beings to master the wisdom of the 4 kinds of perfect knowledge.
Next, we turn to another of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's philosophical works. It is a short text in which he goes through and shows the flaws of different mistaken viewpoints, starting with the view of self, going through several Buddhist perspectives. And it is based on another work written by one of Atisha's disciples known as Umisenge. It's entitled Essential Points for the Investigation of Philosophical Tenets. Homage to the Omniscient One. The philosophical tenets can be classified as twofold, those of other traditions and those of our own. The tenets of other traditions. Generally speaking, there are countless assertions made by those holding distorted views. However, the most significant one was made by followers of the doctrine of Supreme Brahman, who assert the existence of a self that is permanent, pervasive, without body, and singular. This view is untenable. Is this self identical with the skandhas or substantially different from them? It would be illogical to assert the former, since the self is seen as permanent while the skandhas are impermanent. The latter is also unacceptable, since there would need to be some substantial entity called self other than the skandhas, which could be pointed to after the 5 skandhas have been removed. If one argues that such a self exists but is not apparent to anyone, one must also accept the existence of the horn of a rabbit and the child of a barren woman. Thus, since the self is not seen to be either the skandhas or something substantially different, and since it is not reasonable to maintain a third alternative, stating that the self is neither the skandhas nor something different, it is established that there is no such self. One might further inquire, are the self and the skandhas the support and the supported? Such a phenomenon is not observed. Does the self pervade the skandhas? That would be a contradiction in substance, since the self is one and the skandhas are manifold. The self also does not possess the skandhas, since no connection between the two has been established. The self is not singular, since the entities it is believed to pervade are separate. If the self is one, it follows that by binding one individual, all others are bound as well. The self is not autonomous, since happiness and suffering are experienced regardless of one's wishes. It is also not feasible to assert the self is without body, since the idea of the self is something separate from the body has already been refuted. If one asserts that the body is the self, the premise of it being without body is undermined. Lastly, a third alternative is not established. For these reasons, it follows that this designation of a self or I is similar to identifying a rope as a snake. The tenets of our own tradition, the Shravaka tenets. According to the Shravaka tenets, outer phenomena are composed of subtle particles, either separated by space, not separated by space, or without space between them, yet not joined. These views are illogical. According to them, apprehending a rope as a snake is a delusion, but asserting it to be a rope is a mistake as well. Even thinking a rope is in fact not a rope, but 2 twisted strings or a bundle of fibers, one is mistaken. Even fibers do not exist. They are collections of subtle particles. Now, do these subtle particles exist? They do not, because for a particle to be truly existent implies that it has no directional parts. When the directional parts of a particle are separated, however, no such particle without directional parts can be found. One may then argue that the directional parts are inseparable from the particle. However, when one central particle is surrounded by 6 other particles, is the part connected to the particle located to its west also connected to the particles located to its east or not? If it is connected, the particle in the center of the 6 other particles is indeed a single partless entity. This would imply, however, that all things agglomerated by particles collapse into one subtle particle. If it is not connected to both sides, the premise of the particle being partless is undermined. Thus, since the existence of a single particle has not been established, nor can the existence of many. Without particles, notions of them being with or without space between them, or them touching yet not being conjoined, are nothing but mental superimpositions. Some maintain that entities exist as wholes possessed of parts, like a rosary and its constituent threads, for instance. This is untenable. Are the parts in the whole one or separate entities? To maintain that they are one is untenable. If they were, anything that has an outer red layer, for instance, would have to be entirely red, both inside and outside. Also, they cannot be different entities, since no whole can be observed separate from its parts. Who has ever seen a whole rosary separate from its twisted strings and strands of fiber? The Chittamatra Tenets. According to the followers of the Chittamatra Tenets, the self, particles, and so forth are non-existent. Mind and awakened awareness, however, are believed to have momentary existence arising in a continuum. This is untenable because momentary existence cannot be established. Since the past moment has ceased and the future moment has not yet come to be, both are non-existent and without past and future. How could there be a present moment that arises as a result of these? Regarding the mind, do cause and result arise at a separate time or simultaneously? Supposing they arise at separate times, is there a gap between the ending of the cause and arising of the result? Asserting a gap is untenable because it could only arise from a past moment, which is a non-entity as it has already ceased. Asserting no gap is also illogical because all of time would collapse into a single moment. It would follow that an entire aeon would be equal to a single moment, and even one moment would have further subdivisions. To maintain that cause and result arise simultaneously is also untenable. What effect would the cause have on the result? Things that exist simultaneously, such as the right and left horns of a cow, cannot be differentiated in terms of cause and result. Furthermore, if the resultant mind arises from an existing cause, a pot would give rise to another pot. If one maintains that it arises from a non-existent cause, it absurdly follows that rabbits could have horns. If one asserts that it arises without cause, it absurdly follows that mind can arise on the basis of mere matter. Does one cause give rise to one result? No, because it can be observed that single results arise in dependence on many causes and conditions, such as a clay pot. Does one cause give rise to many results? In that case, cause and result would be at odds. From the perspective of the cause, there would be too many results, and from the perspective of the result, there would be too few causes. Do many causes give rise to a single result? The fault this would entail is the exact opposite of the previous one. Do many causes give rise to many results? If a single cause cannot generate a single result, many causes cannot generate many results, since many is merely a collection of single entities. Therefore, the mind asserted by the followers of the Chittamatra Tenets does not arise from any cause whatsoever, and it does not arise in any way. If there is still conviction in its existence, one may ask, what is the mind's essential nature? Is it singular or multiple? If the former, it would be impossible to perceive multiplicities. If the latter, it must either consist of subtle material particles or many moments of mind. Which one is it? The refutation of these points has already been taught. According to the proponents of false images, mere mind devoid of images is distinguished from material objects due to its knowing quality. It cannot be investigated or expressed. However, this is not tenable. If something has form, it should be visible, and how could something without form be observed? Likewise, we must investigate the existence of a continuously arising awakened awareness. According to the proponents of real images, awakened awareness endowed with pure focal objects exists. This is untenable, since the elimination of all faults and the arising of awakened awareness in terms of a sign that can be apprehended are mutually exclusive. The proponents of false images argue as follows. Since a future moment cannot be established when neither past nor present exists, then if there were no mind essence, the basis that is transformed, how can there be awakened awareness, the transformed basis? Moreover, if there is no such awakened awareness, how could the benefit of beings come about? Just like a butter lamp that has burned out, the activities of mind and mental factors have ended, but nothing is interrupted as nothing has ever existed. The benefit of others is accomplished through the power of aspirations alone. By Manjughosha.
And now the airing of the definitive meaning, the speech that classifies the tenets. Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo wrote this as a way to discuss the philosophical Indian Buddhist schools and the differences between those tenets and Dzogchen views. Having bowed to the Guru, who is the Vajra of the mind, the face of the three doors of liberation, and whose nature is the unconditioned sphere of phenomena, I will briefly expound answers to queries. General background. The Lord who expresses non-duality taught inconceivable causal and resultant vehicles to the trainees of the three families to bring them to their liberated states. All beings who did not realize that, having adopted Cartesian views, disturb the teachings. These are fabrications of the teachings belonging to the activities of Mahadeva. Within this, everything from the great exposition school among the hearers to the Vajra essence of the supreme secret is correctly taught as a means to realize the suchness of the singular reality of phenomenon. The common philosophical characteristics of extremists. All of the extremists who greatly delight in preaching eternalism and nihilism are united in accepting the existence of a self of a person that is permanent, unitary, and independent of aggregates. Some of the salient features of the four Buddhist doxographical schools. With respect to the self, those who expound our own system establish its non-existence because it is not observed as being either identical to or separate from the aggregates, and also in other terms. Based on this, the following of the Great Exposition School have not abandoned even gross grasping at the selfhood of phenomena, since they assert the true existence of the grasped object as atoms and the grasping consciousness as a partless instant. The followers of the Sutra school abandon grasping at the gross selfhood of apprehended phenomenon, since they assert all external phenomena as the perceiving aspects of the mind, yet they assert the cause of that to be external phenomena. Although the followers of the mind-only school have ascertained the non-trueness of subject-object duality on account of establishing the non-existence of matter as characterized by spatial parts and consciousness as characterized by temporal parts, they still assert the non-dual, thoroughly established nature to be true. Through the five great reasonings, the autonomists established even that as lacking selfhood, presenting the ultimate as lacking essence, and the conventional as it appears. The consequentialists, having abandoned all elaborate propositions with regard to imputation and depreciation, are endowed with the uniqueness of destroying others' propositions through the reasoning that shows internal contradictions. The similarity between the consequentialist school and the Great Perfection. Given that the consequentialist school and the Great Perfection are of the same taste with regard to the inconceivable dharmata in the state beyond cognition, look at this with the mind of utter meditative equipoise. The difference between the mind-only school and other emptiness tradition. The two, namely the stainlessly pure mind-only school and the other emptiness tradition, are not similar. This is on account of the former asserting consciousness as ultimate, while the latter asserts wisdom as ultimate. The path and fruit tradition and its difference from the mind-only school. The followers of the path and fruit tradition establish appearances as mind, where the perceptions of mind is illusion, and that illusion also is lacking essence. This is further classified as being interdependent and beyond expression. Yet the erroneous conception that sees this position as similar to the realist in asserting appearances as mind is the fault of not having subtly investigated. It is thus stated in the Vajra Tantra, apart from this precious mind, there are neither Buddhas nor beings. The abode or the object of consciousness does not even slightly exist externally. And the Tantra of Union states as follows: all those things characterized as possessing selfhood, external or internal, are to be investigated in terms of mind. Apart from the mind, they do not exist elsewhere. These are noted in the rationales accordingly stated by the savior Nagarjuna. With regard to a single external form, consciousness engaged differently. A beautiful form appears differently to others. With regard to a single female form, it turns out to have three aspects: filth, something desired, and something to be eaten, to the ascetic, lusty one, and a dog, respectively. Thus, this type of argument establishes the proposition. In particular, even though it is similar to the mind-only school, concerning the mode of asserting selfhood as mind, the mind is still not asserted as truly established, since it is accepted as free from elaborations. The similarity between the path and fruit tradition and the Great Perfection. Furthermore, the luminous great perfection, as in the great Tantra of self-arising, extensively elaborates on the level of views from the extremists that expound eternalism and nihilism to the supreme secret, namely the Vajra essence. Likewise, the root Tantra of He Vajra states the following: on that the followers of the great exposition school teach, in like manner do the followers of the sutra school. After that teach the followers of the yogic practice school, and then afterwards the followers of the middle way school. These, and so on, are clearly stated. How the path and fruit tradition surpasses the teachings of the four doxographical schools. Virupa, the lord of the yogis, for the gradual engagement of practitioners, taught the essential meaning of interpretations that surpasses the extremists and the two similar schools of the hearers, though having commonalities with them, since they teach aggregates, elements, and spheres of perception. Inasmuch as it asserts the non-existence of objects in consciousness and the lack of nature with respect to non-duality other than those, it also suppresses the mind-only school. It is also superior to the middle way school, which asserts that although the conventional appears like illusion, an intrinsic essence does not exist, it does not assert a "this is it" thesis with regard to the ultimate. Therefore, transcending the four extremes primordially fabricated by the mind, practicing in union is the ultimate import of this path. Furthermore, not being mere words, but the moment of bursting forth from basic space by means of the discriminating wisdom of the ultimate, it is of a single taste with a great perfection. The difference between the great perfection and the path and fruit tradition. In brief, the teachings of immediate introduction to awareness within the profound and secret heart essence are meant for those with superior faculties and those who belong to the lineage of the sudden realizers. The manner of verbal instructions in the exposition of the path and fruit tradition is a gradual one. If one correctly understands this mode, fabricated contradictions will be pacified in basic space. The difference between the path and fruit and the other emptiness traditions. The Lord of Yogis, Virupa, presented the nature of mind as the union of luminosity and emptiness, while the proponents of other emptiness presented a thoroughly established Buddha nature. Even though these two share an identical epithet, their meanings are different. If asked why, it is as the Manjunatha Sakya Pandita said, therefore, since Buddha nature is devoid of elaborations, the appearance of the Buddha and cyclic existence to sentient beings is viable. Thus, with this and other arguments, Buddha nature is established as being free from elaborations. The other emptiness school asserts that it is permanent, stable, and thoroughly established. Hence, is there an occasion where these are asserted as similar? Therefore, the great omniscient one said the following: natural luminosity is like a crystal, transformed by latencies like paint, from which appear multiple states. This sphere is the basis of all, samsara and nirvana. And to illuminate the meaning of this, here, Maitreya Natha and Nagarjuna accept luminous, continuous, and unimpeded mind, which is free from the elaborations of the four extremes. This uncompounded coalescence is asserted as the ground. Hence, the scriptures and reasonings extensively establish the manner in which the intention of the two great charioteers are collected as one. The signification of this basis of illustration is stated as follows. The Dharma Dhatu, the stained reality, luminosity, Buddha nature, pure nature of mind, and so forth, are taught to be synonymous with multiple appellations. The Lankavatara and the Ganavulya, the pith instructions of the Lord of Yogis, and the Venerable Illustrious Chandrakirti and others accept the term basis of all as that ground. And the profound Tantra's term is such as Manjushri, great wisdom, innately arisen, Vajra, Vajrasattva, glorious, and Samanta Vajra are countlessly taught as being synonymous with the ground. One must investigate these clear statements with a keen intelligence. Apart from this, asserting that Buddha nature is the mere negation of inherent nature through reasoning with respect to the stained mind, proposing it as being truly established nature, and so on, are shown through correct reasoning as falling into the extremes of imputation and denigration. Yet here, as a middle way, for the time being, it will be kept without negation or affirmation. Deliberations on the wisdom of the Buddha. With regard to the wisdom of the Buddha, which is the result, the autonomous tradition of the middle way school asserts it as non-existence, and the other emptiness school asserts it as permanent, stable, and unchanging. The consequentialist tradition, which includes a proponent of the ultimate definitive meaning, asserts it as being free from any thesis of existence and non-existence, since it does not abide together with cognition, and it is the domain of the inconceivable. The presentation of the non-existence of wisdom in the sutras is intended so that its non-existence is associated with defiled phenomena. This is intended to ward off grasping at permanence. In some discourses, wisdom is also stated as existing. This refers to the inconceivable, inexpressible wisdom that pervades all samsara and nirvana. This is intended to clear the extreme of nihilism. In reality, when one directly realizes the mode of existence that transcends the two extremes and is beyond propositions, the elaboration of eternalism and nihilism are pacified within the basic space. Advice to practice. If one aspires to know the meaning of these correctly without abiding in single-pointed meditative equipoise in a secluded and delightful forest, it will never be realized through the saucity of the intellectual. Therefore, you privileged one, having drunk the essence of profound meaning like a young sun, may your supreme intelligence bloom like a white lotus, and through the path of meditation be enriched with the resultant state of abandonment. Although you have offered an infinitude of questions on account of your superior and marvelous knowledge, I am conditioned by ignorance and laziness. How then is there an opportunity to answer extensively? Yet, with regard to what was briefly offered here, may hosts of defects be cleared, and through this virtue may all ocean-like sentient beings attain the state of omniscience. Sarvada Kalanam Bhavatu.
Our next text is the abbreviated biography of the omniscient Lama and great Vajraholder Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, and it's a heartfelt praise of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's exceptional qualities and contribution to many of Tibet's spiritual traditions. It was composed based on his direct experience by someone who knew him extremely well, his close associate, Jamgon Khyentse Lodotai. Namo Guru. Your supreme name, difficult to utter, is Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. In all the worlds, including the gods, your fame shines brilliantly, and those with bejeweled crowns bow down to your lotus feet. You are the sovereign of the complete teachings because you are the sole refuge of all beings. You benefit all whom you encounter with the enlightened activities you possess, and your qualities make possible the impossible. How marvelous. Appearing with your charisma and reputation generates amazement in the minds of the innocent. But these are not the qualities of an excellent being's perfect liberation. The four elements are immensely powerful. Take earth, for example. Yet they do not compare to all-encompassing space. It is the same when comparing the liberated lives of the doctrine holders of the lands of snows with your extraordinary, marvelous, and outstanding life of liberation. How long would it take those with a hair tip of your understanding to plumb the depths of your ocean of experience? You were not swayed by the power of solicitation, intelligence, wealth, and the like. Through your inherent and cultivated qualities, you became the chief of all traditions of the victors in the land of Tibet. Solely in this way and in this world, you possess the liberated lifestyle of a second Lord of Sages. The 10 pillars that support the exegetical tradition, the 8 great chariots of the practiced lineage, the maturing empowerments and the essential liberating instructions of these traditions that are in the land of snows, you brought them to their perfection through listening, contemplating, and meditating. From non-birth, you displayed the manner of birth. From non-transference, you displayed the manner of transference. Similarly, although you reached the conclusion of all things to renounce and realize, you displayed training in skillful means as a disciple. The Tantra's divisions of medicational practice, oral tradition, and treasure tradition all belong to the 3 yogas of the early translations. You accepted these traditions as your own inheritance and established vast flowing networks of maturation and liberation. By the karmic propensities of your enlightened resolve, the timeliness of your disciples, and your unraveling of the Vajra seals according to the Dakinis prophecy, precious earth treasures, mind treasures, pure visions that shine in the mind, the oral lineage, recollected teachings of previous lives, rediscovered teachings of previous masters, and previously known precious treasuries of the profound teachings. You opened these anew for fortunate ones, and became the wheel-wielding monarch of all knowledge holders of the ancient school, the greatly secret root teachings. Muchen Chakra Samvara and Gyaltsab Sempachempo were in actuality Khenchen Dorji Chang. Khyentse's relatives conferred empowerment to you, the great regent of the three secrets of body, speech, and mind. The scriptures of the primary forefathers and the auxiliary textual systems of Ngorchen, Gankarwa, and Sachen and his heir, you mastered all their instructions. The deities and lamas cared for you, and you established all disciples in the realm of Khechara. You left an immense legacy for the teachings and were an unrivaled lama of the Sakya tradition, the singular ornament of the teachings. Dakpo, Chenga, Karmapa, Drikung, Tak, Trukpa, and so forth. You took the essential nature of their instructional advice, obtained the actual lineage of blessings, and attained the empowerment of indestructible primordial wisdom. You established revulsion, the foot of meditation, developed devotion, the head of meditation, and donned conscientiousness and compassionate activities, the armor of a sentinel of mindfulness. Obtaining the sign of heat of the four practices of the path of skillful means, you beheld the abiding nature of the Vajra body and realized the great Mahamudra of the path of liberation. Thus, phenomenal existence arose nakedly as the Dharmakaya. The border between your meditative equipoise and post-meditation was destroyed, as your mind and appearance merged as one. Free from any sense of difference between distraction and attentiveness, you perfected the dynamic energy of the yoga of one taste, in which acceptance and rejection of the two truths do not exist, resulting in your becoming the king of all realized practitioners of the Kagyu tradition, the essence of the teachings. Yoga Tantra teachings, such as splendor, peak, and space, are as rare as gold these days. Having received them all, you took up their practice. Through the Anuttara generally, and particularly the maturation and liberation of Hevajra, Chakra Sambhara, and Guhya Samaja, and the commentaries of those tantras, you enacted the two benefits. Followers of Bhutan and Dolpopa, to all their scriptures, you extended your reverence. By stringing along the thin golden cord of the excellent tradition, you scaled to the peak of all lineage holders of the clarifier of the teachings, Jowo Atisha. Through exposition, debate, and composition, you polished the rich textual traditions of the scholars of the noble land of Tibet, of the noble land and Tibet, the two great charioteers and their successors, including the general texts, advice, and pith instructions of the teacher found in the instructions of the seven deities and scriptures, and in particular, the Kadampa of the new traditions, the view of the noble tradition of the Madhyamaka, the Prajnaparamita of the Mahayana, the subtle Vinaya conduct of the Hinayana, and the mother of all teachings, the Abhidharma Kosha. By liberating a cache of fearless confidence, you are a majestic mountain-like Geshe of the Gandenpa, the Lord of the teachings. The spiritual and temporal affairs of the Shen tradition, you perceive their preservation as a cause for expanding the benefit and well-being of the teachings and beings. The holders of the Yungdrung Pen tradition, you highly praised and uplifted them, and so glorified those who preserved the teachings. Furthermore, since benefiting and providing comfort to even a single being is said to be the activities of a Buddha, you never belittled them with the arrogance of erudition or accomplishment. Like a mother, you were close to all the philosophical traditions. Like a father, you praised all who possessed qualities. You saw the meek as your own children. Thus, I have told the story of your realization in brief, so that the short-sighted can differentiate your unique and marvelous qualities from those of other individuals. By this excellent deed, may all beings follow your life of liberation, the life of an omniscient Lama and Lord. Fulfill all your wishes and spread enlightened activities in every direction. Not only did the precious and omniscient Lama personally promise to be a holder of the Buddhist traditions, he was also commonly perceived as an eminent preserver of his own teachings. He perceived me, a lowly clod of dirt, with the name of Guna, as gold. I was thereby fortunate enough to receive the bestowal of the extraordinary nectar that is the story of how his experiential realization came to be. On account of this experience, I faithfully and respectfully attempted to articulate a small portion. May it be the cause for attaining in every life to come this excellent Lama's 3 secrets and enlightened activities in the very same way. May virtue increase.
Our final text today is Immortality in a Nutshell, a daily practice for Amiteos extracting the pristine nectar. This Amiteos sadhana, which has a special focus on Guru Padmakara, is based on one of the treasure texts contained in a Terma cycle called Bearing the Seal of Secrecy, which was revealed by the 5th Dalai Lama in a pure vision. Namo Guru Padma Aparamitaya Yunaya. For those who prefer to practice essentially, here is a daily sadhana for Amiteos extracting the pristine nectar from the Terma cycle known as Bearing the Seal of Secrecy. Preliminaries: refuge and bodhicitta. Visualize the objects of refuge, take refuge in them, and generate bodhicitta in their presence. From now until enlightenment, I and all sentient beings take refuge in the 3 roots and the deities of longevity. I generate the pure motivation of bodhicitta, wishing to accomplish the level of an immortal Vijayadhara for others so that they attain complete Buddhahood. Repeat 3 times. Expelling obstructing forces and establishing the protective tent. Set the boundaries and the protective spheres. Hri. I am Hayagriva, wielding a club and a menacing mudra. From my heart stream wrathful emanations, weapons, and masses of fire that banish negative forces, obstructions, and elemental demons which steal all life and life force. Then they transform into the protective tent. Om Vraja Kroda Hayagriva Hulu Hulu Hung Pet Noje Jungpo Ushataya Pet Om Vajra Chakra Dwala Ram Hung Brum Hung. Blessing the offerings. In case you have arranged some physical offerings, say, Hri, the substances to accomplish the mandala of immortal Vijayadharas and the outer, inner, and secret naturally present offerings are purified of every impurity, error, confusion, and imperfection, and blessed by the 3 wisdom syllables. Purify the offerings with Ram, Yam, Kam. Repeat 3 times. So they satisfy every desire. Multiply the offerings with Om, Ao, Hum. Repeat 3 times. Main practice, deity generation. Om Svabhava Shuddha Sarva Dhamma Svabhava Shuddho Ham. From the expanse of emptiness, free of grasping, Padmakara appears like bubbles on the surface of water, sitting on a lotus and moon seat in the Sambhogakaya form of white Amiteos, holding a Vajra and a long life vase. The Dakini Mandarava sits on his lap. She is wearing white, and she embraces him with her two arms that hold a lotus and skull cup. Both appear in their Sambhogakaya form, adorned with the silk, jewel, and bone ornaments. In his body are 3 channels and 5 chakras. In the center of each chakra are white, red, dark blue, yellow, and green Padma-turjan cells in Sambhogakaya form. Holding in their right hand a wheel, lotus, a vajra, a jewel, and a crossed vajra, respectively. In their left hand, they hold a long life vase. Each wears the secret garment, the monastic shawl, and the lotus hat. The 5 ravishing consorts, Mandarava, Shakyadevi, Yeshitsogyo, Kalasiddhi, and Tashichedran, appear in the forms of Buddha Lokana, Pandaravasini, Mamaki, Ratnatara, and Samayatara, holding their respective hand implements in their right hands and a skull cup filled with the elixir of long life in their left. The deities are naked and adorned with the bone ornaments. Their hair is loosed, and they are attractive, seductive, and arousing. The deities strike the Vajra and lotus postures amidst rainbow lights. Say these words and actualize their meaning. Invitation, prostration, and offerings. In brief, the next steps in the practice, such as inviting the mandala of wisdom deities and so on, are Hri. From the infinite palace of utterly pure nature, Padma-turjan Zal, who has power over life, please come and remain here, indivisible from our visualization. We prostrate in devotion with body, speech, and mind, and present you with outer, inner, and secret offerings. Please grant the supreme and ordinary accomplishments. Om Vajra Guru Padma Ayujnana Agam Pardam Pushpe Dupe Aloke Gande Nivedya Shabda Praticha Soha Maha Pansa Amrita Balingta Rakta Kahi. Praise. Hri. Merely thinking of you terminates that devil, the Lord of Death. To you, Padmakara Amiteus, and to the deities of the union of A and Vam, we prostrate in devotion with body, speech, and mind. Recitation. At my heart, on a moon disk, is a brilliant white syllable, Hri. The mantra garland revolves around it. Light emanates from the syllables to gather the glorious quintessence of the 4 elements, which restores the raptures and decline of my love, vitality, and longevity. The luminosity also gathers all the life, merit, and wisdom of samsara and nirvana in the form of 5 colored rays of light, which enter the mandala of the deities' bodies through the top of their heads, and then flow out from the point of union as bodhicitta nectar that fills my 3 channels and 5 chakras. As a result, the obstacles of untimely death are pacified, life, merit, wealth, and wisdom flourish, and I become an immortal Vijayadhara. As you say this prayer, think about its meaning and then recite the mantra. Om Vajra Guru Padma Ayujnana Sarva Siddhi Nri Brum Hungja Vajra Ayushe Swaha. At the end of the session, recite the vowel and consonant mantra, the mantra of dependent origination, the offering mantra, and the verse of praise. If you wish, you may also add a Tseguk longevity summoning prayer at this point. Purify mistakes and negativity with confession by reciting the 100-syllable mantra. Conclusion, disillusion, and re-arising. The universe and all those dwelling in it melt into light. The light dissolves into me, and I myself dissolve into clear light, vanishing into basic space. Again, the illusory form of union arises like a rainbow from the sky. Saying this eliminates the extremes of permanence and nihilism. Dedications, aspirations, and prayers of auspiciousness. Through the positivity and merit of this practice, may I swiftly attain the realization of the protector Amiteus, and thereby lead every single sentient being to their state of perfection. Dedicate, make aspirations, and say words of auspiciousness with these 4 lines and any other prayers that are appropriate. This text is a brief practice based on the main part of the Pure Vision root text, the part that details the visualization, with the addition of preliminary and other sections. It was arranged by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, a mere servant who delights his master, the lotus-born Guru. May the merit of this compilation be the cause for all beings to enjoy everything they desire and the glory of long life and wisdom.
So Dolma, am I correct in assuming we've reached the end of the program here?
Yes, we have. That's all of the texts that we've published so far.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd just like to say a few words here at the end. First of all, I'd like to thank Dolma and also the Khyentse Vision Project team for including me in this program. It's truly a great honor. As somebody who's been following this project from its inception, I really rejoice incredibly in what is going on. First of all, it's a really great and courageous vision that lies behind even aspiring to do this. And to now see it getting carried out with this incredible dedication and efficacy, and actually delivering this quality of work that we've just seen by this team of accomplished translators, editors, administrators, and people with technical skills, as well as also creating this structure for training translators to actually pull this off. As this, now we've witnessed this for a while, successfully operating organization is extraordinary. And it's clearly gaining more and more momentum, and more pages are being translated. Also, there's been, I gather, quite a few sleepless nights for the Aussies involved, but it's really a tremendous joy and to watch this. And it's really a testimony to the power of Khyentse Wangpo's aspirations and also the enduring merit of beings in this world. So I'd like to conclude with my deepest prayers for the well-being of everyone in this world, for the long life of the Dharma and the holders of the Dharma, for the patrons of the Dharma, for the success of this project, and for the long life of all those involved. So I think we'll conclude with some verses about Khyentse Wangpo's teachings. The master of the ocean-like remade teaching of Tibet, the Lord who wields the extraordinary 7 special direct blessings, you who are Manjushri himself in person, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, may all be auspicious for your tradition and teachings to spread, flourish, and increase. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jakob. Thank you so much for leading this session. And thank you so much to all of the resounders who did such a beautiful job. Thank you also to the translators who've done these beautiful translations, and for everybody in the team. As Jakob said, from the editors to the tech people to every single person has worked really hard to make all these translations available. So please enjoy them, and there are more coming. So we have another 9 translations coming over the next couple of days. And our week of celebrating Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo will end on Saturday. So Saturday is our last day, and we're going to conclude our special week with our last event, which will be a teaching by Khenpo Choying Dorje on one of our translations. So please come along to that. Details are in our social media, both in Facebook and Instagram, and I think also Khyentse Foundation is sharing some details about that event. Sorry, there's a storm happening where I am, so if you hear thunder, that's what it is. And so, yes, please check our social media pages and all the details will be there. And thank you so, so much for your patience in joining us with this long resounding. I know it's a slightly unconventional thing to do, but for us, it's such a pleasure to see the fruition of all of our incredibly hard work there before us on the page. And it also really helps us to kind of enjoy the flavor of these texts properly when we read them out loud. So I hope you've also experienced some of that enjoyment. And please keep checking back on our translation page to see the rest of our translations, and be in touch. If you have any feedback for us, please let us know. We love to hear from you. And other than that, thank you so much for coming and joining in with us. And a special thank you to Pema Maya, who did an amazing job with all of our events for this week. So thank you so, so much.